2025 Qatar Grand Prix. This is the Qatar Grand Prix review on the Inside Line F1 podcast. Soumil Arora here, Kunal Shah with me. We were both on the Formula One Hindi F1 broadcast on Fan Code. We were both losing our breath. We were both losing our mind. We were both losing our voices. Kunal, this has to be, without a doubt, one of the biggest championship bottle jobs I have ever noticed. What are McLaren doing? I'm sorry. Again, as commentators, we need to be very unbiased and we probably shouldn't go over the line that much. But it's very evident that today, in trying to create fairness between Oscar and Lando, McLaren were more than happy to sacrifice a race win. And they said they would do it. They said they would do it, and they did exactly that. And it doesn't make sense to me. Maybe it makes sense to them, Kunal. Maybe losing a race win does make sense to them.
I am speechless. Yes, we're commentators. We're supposed to be neutral. I know we are neutral, unless you see Carlos Sainz on the podium, which we did, but we'll get to that. But as commentators, we are also supposed to call BS when we see it. And that's what we are doing. We are fans first. Yes, we are paid to talk about the sport. But McLaren, what on earth were you doing there? This reminded me of that Lewis Hamilton 2021 Abu Dhabi scenario where at the start Lewis was the only car on the start grid. Everyone went into the pits. McLaren, the only team that read that wrong. Zach Brown, Andrea Stella both said we read it wrong. Of course, that's what they're going to say to the public. But my question, like I asked you on the official broadcast as well, Soumil, was I wonder if this was papaya rules playing up first before what's the right thing to do as race strategy. So, in their flowchart, is this the fair thing to do? And then is this the right thing to do? Because had they, let's play out the scenario. Had they pitted Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, Lando would have double stacked and lost a lot of positions to the other cars. That's the scenario that could have happened. Had they pitted Oscar but not pitted Lando, or pitted Lando but not pitted Oscar, that would have been clearly favoring one driver over the other, which is something they don't want to do. So they decided, you know what? We're not going to pit any driver. And I think that was their decision-making tree.
Indecision is also a decision. And the one thing that we've all learned about the world in our entire lifetime is that the world is not fair. So why do you want to be fair? Just reward the driver who's fastest on the day. And the driver who is fastest on the day, Oscar Piastri, has been robbed. And there are so many instances I can think of where this has happened now. Hungary comes to mind. Austria, he was told to stop. That's okay, it's still fair. I get that. But Hungary comes to mind as a definite incident where let me compose myself.
You
This
are
is
doing a
great.
McLaren. You are so annoyed at McLaren. I can see that.
I am. This is unbelievable. But guys, Oscar Piastri has been made to drop so many points because of McLaren's demand for fairness. Think of Hungary. He should have been the one winning. He didn't. Whatever happened, happened. Think of Monza. He should have been the one ahead of Lando. He didn't. He played the team game. We come to Qatar. He was clearly ahead of Lando. Lando was struggling. Lando was constantly asking on the radio, where can I improve to Oscar? Turn 7, where he made the mistake, he was constantly behind Oscar. And the radio was filled with messages of Will Joseph telling Lando, you can do better here. And Lando said, I can't. It was clear Lando was not as quick as Oscar on the day. And somehow, Kunal, he's second. And somehow at the end, Max Verstappen always wins. So, my question to you is, till what point will Oscar Piastri continue to take blows for McLaren's indecision or their pursuit for fairness? Because he's probably going to lose out on the World Championship because of this. And you don't get a lot of chances to fight for them.
We don't get a lot of chances to fight. In fact, all the drivers who got just one chance to fight for a world championship, Jenson Button, Jacques Villeneuve, Damon Hill, let's just go talk to them. Would they have appreciated more chances? Would they have wanted more world championships? Because Max Verstappen is definitely sniffing his 5th world title. We already have comments coming in. We'll get to them in a bit. But why don't we just take one comment? Very interesting comment, right? Maybe one of the McLaren drivers could have taken things in their hands and pit themselves. Praveen, brilliant point. Could they have done that? Should they have done that? The biggest risk with that is if you come into the pits when your team is not ready, that is even more disastrous, because what happens is you come and suddenly, like, oh my god, Oscar's in the pits or Lando's in the pits. They have to run around and get their tires prepared. They have to get the entire crew prepared. Now, you can ask the question, okay, should that have been a strategy versus spending the reverse reverse sequence of stops that both the McLaren drivers did? Maybe, but McLaren, for some reason, are very, very strict with their drivers. I don't believe any of the McLaren drivers can be a rebel ever in the team, Somal.
And I don't know if anyone can ever win a World Drivers' Championship in an environment like that, unless they are miles better than the other driver, which, as of now, Oscar is not. He's better than Lando today. He was better than Lando in the sprint race. He was better than Lando on Sunday, and evidently, he was smoking Lando on the track today. 2 tenths faster on every lap, especially in that middle stint after Lando got on the mediums. Oscar was running away. Oscar should have won this. And I have a question for you, Kunal. Were McLaren overconfident in their pit approach? Because they did not go on the hards as early as they could. Obviously, nobody had run the hards at that point, and Red Bull were, along with all the other cars like Carlos Sainz and the Williams as well, and even Kimi Antonelli, were on pretty good pace with the hards. Were McLaren overconfident on their pace on the mediums that they said that there's no need to try the hards?
That's a great point, because what McLaren were trying to do, they were trying to do 25, 25, and 7. Whereas other teams did 7, 25, and 25, right? And the last 7 laps, McLaren, in all probability, were going to take the soft. So McLaren were going to spend 0 laps on the most robust race tire, had it not been for Oscar Piastri pushing them to say, guys, let's pit now rather than pit later. And I believe McLaren were just, like I said, this is a world champion team when it comes to engineering, but when it comes to running race strategy, when will McLaren say we are analyzing, we are still learning, and we'll come back stronger? Because now we've seen this for 3 seasons, 2023 onwards, when they've had a fast car, they've messed up race strategy. When is it that they'll stand up and be as ruthless as Red Bull, for example, always have been? And to my mind, McLaren were just shocked. They didn't seem like they had the plan in place. They thought, we're just going to do 25, 25, 7. We have enough pace to overtake. Mind you, they did have enough pace to overtake when they could, when they had a large tire delta, right? But a lot of that was not down to it was just down to tire delta. It was not down to having a plan. And it just seemed like Max had a plan for turn 1. He already said, I'm gonna go crazy on turn 1. He already said that. They already seemed like they had a plan when the safety car would come out. And I was so proud to see Hannah Schmitz on that podium, taking the
Oh,
trophy,
she was on
because
the podium today.
yes, exactly. And team's principal strategy engineer. So my question is, and a lot of people are asking, does Oscar want to continue in McLaren this coming season? Can papaya rules can happen any of the seasons? It's a nightmare. Oscar was gutted at the end of the race. But Samuel, let's discuss, what can Oscar Piastri do? He cannot be a rebel. He cannot drive into the pits when he wants to. He can force the team to make a pit stop change or a pit
Yeah.
decision. He saw that in the race today. He cannot disobey papaya rules. He cannot have a 50-50 overtaking on Lando Norris like we saw on, in Austria. And he may not even need to leave McLaren, because if McLaren are going the way they're going, and if they are the quickest team or one of the quickest teams in 2026, he just has to figure a way around papaya rules like Lando Norris did. How can you make papaya rules work in your favor? That's what Oscar Piastri needs to do.
But what can Oscar Piastri say about today? He put the car on pole. He won the sprint. He was clocking better lap times than his teammate and the drivers behind. He was managing his tires very well, not complaining of graining at all. And somehow, he still lost the race. Make it make sense. Make it make sense.
Papaya rules. That's what I'd
Yeah,
say.
and in spite of being in the fastest car, like that annoys you the most, because to me, a constructors world champion should encapsulate not just who's built the fastest car, but also who's wisest and can execute it the best. I I don't know. Obviously, at the end, the point standings reflects who is the champion. But in terms of being the best team, I think McLaren have miles to go in terms of race execution. Don't you think so, Kunal?
Yes, they do. I think they're relying a lot more on outright pace to make up for the strategic mistakes, whereas a lot of other teams do the opposite, right? And I've always said this, that strategy can never compensate for outright pace. In McLaren's case, outright pace is not compensating for bad strategy. We've seen this before. A slower team just like Red Bull today. They were not the
Yeah.
fastest car. Yes, Max Verstappen was seemingly the fastest because of clean air, but he was not the fastest car. That McLaren had, at least a 2 tenths race pace advantage.
2 tenths, Kunal. Max Verstappen was losing 5 to 7 tenths a lap in 5 corners. Sector 3.
Yeah, Sector 3,
Consistently.
McLaren was like a dream. That was the car to be in. So McLaren scratching their heads. And, it's come at a point of time. Yes, Lando Norris has a 12-point lead in the Drivers' Championship. There's still a very good chance he's going to clinch it, Soumil, right? But we should ask the question, who is the most deserving world champion in the 2025 Formula One season? I know the answer is obvious, but who is the most deserving champion?
And by the way, folks, Uttara, Kitanch, Nick Warrior oh 07, Bharati, Persiv, this is all for you too, guys. Fayanshu, you as well. Same for you, Praveen. I know you're watching, guys. We need to know your opinion. Uh, I think Max, the best driver, needs to win the world championship. And Max has by far and away been the best driver. But today, I feel especially sad for Oscar because if Max is at 100, it's fair to say Oscar's at least been at a 90 or a 91. Let's not count those 7 races. It's of course you do count them in the world championship standings, but apart from them, he's consistently been performing at least a 90% level of what Max was. Okay, the delta is much lower. If Max is at 100, Oscar's maybe at a 97. That's what he's been at the whole season, even today. So I think that's a fair margin to win a world championship by. But I will not be able to digest a world champion becoming a world champion operating at just 80% of the capabilities, which might just happen this year, Kunal.
I never have understood your measurements like the way it comes in F1 ratings of the racing game. So I'll put it my way. 7 wins apiece. Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen. All of them have 7 wins apiece. Whoever wins in Abu Dhabi, assuming it's one of these three drivers, it's going to be the eighth, race win of the season. I know then you can go back to who has more podiums, who has more pole positions, but just what Max has done in that problematic Red Bull,
Yeah.
not just the car, but the team, and the way he's carrying McLaren. McLaren have one hand on the trophy, but that hand is trembling. There is one reason it is trembling. There is one reason why they are making all those mistakes, and that is Max Verstappen. So I'm going to change the word. They're not feeling the pressure, Somil. They are feeling Max Verstappen in the 2025 Drivers' Championship battle.
Yeah. Big time. Big time. Nick Warrior says Max, of course, in terms of who should be the world champion. Praveen has come up with a very interesting comment. And by the way, Persif, we will come to your comment on permutations for Max to win the world championship, or rather, whatever can happen in Abu Dhabi in a second. So we'll get to that. Praveen has said for Oscar, the wisest way to look at things is that you win and lose as a team. The same McLaren team has given him a championship contending car. My friend Praveen, are you a McLaren spokesperson? Because that sounds a lot like a very PR thing to say. You win and lose as a team. As a Formula One driver, you don't dream of being a team player. You dream of being drivers' world champion. No. Abhijit Chaudhary says, watch the Hindi commentary today. Love the Malgadi analogy for DRS train. Uh, Kudos to Chetan Rula, wherever. Yeah, this is amazing. Like he came up with that analogy, and yeah, that's crazy. We had so much fun, Chetan, Kunal, and I, on the Hindi F1 broadcast today.
This was
You guys,
specifically for the Fernando Alonso DRS train, because Fernando all the way from ninth place had a DRS train of I think 9 or 10 drivers in the early part of the race. I love that analogy. It was for everyone listening in who didn't listen into the Hindi broadcast. Mal Gadi is basically a goods carrier train. It's just a long one, a slow one, and just holding everyone back up. So yeah, that was interesting. And yes, I think I said the question, "Kya Norris mal gadi pe chadhenge?" Which was me saying, "Will Norris join the goods carrier train that Fernando Alonso was
Listen,
running?" Which I must say, McLaren, apart from their ill-timed pit stops, they still did call them right when they eventually hit the 24th and 25th lap mark for Oscar and Lando. They brought both their drivers ahead of this goods carrier train, which was actually good. Otherwise, it would have been even more disastrous for them. Soumil.
yeah, it's a crazy analogy by Chetan. That is amazing. More comments. We have more comments. Perciv says, "Can you tell me the possible scenario? What is needed for Max to win the championship in Abu Dhabi?" Okay, I'll be honest. We haven't had the chance to calculate, but I've seen something on Twitter. So let's hope this is true. If you guys can sort of validate us and do the math along with us, that'll be lovely. It says every championship permutation: Verstappen champion, Verstappen P1, Norris P4 or lower. Okay, let me sort of make it better. For Verstappen to be champion, if Max is first, he needs Norris to be P4 or lower. If Verstappen is second, he needs Norris to be sixth or Piastri to be lower than third. If Verstappen is third, he needs Norris to be ninth or Piastri lower than second. For Norris to be champion, he needs to win, he needs to be second, or he needs to be third. Any of those results will do for Lando Norris. If Norris is fourth, he needs Verstappen second or lower. If he's fifth, he also needs Verstappen second or lower. If he's sixth, he needs Verstappen second or lower, and Piastri lower than that too. And for Piastri to be world champion, he needs to be P1 and Norris sixth or lower. And that, of course, depends on Max and where he is. So, long story short, if Lando is in the top three, he's world champion. Simply put.
Long story short, despite being so close to the top and despite being the fastest McLaren driver, this rule of fairness has actually cost Oscar Piastri more than Lando Norris in Qatar today. So just goes to
Yeah.
show the papaya rules are not always fair when you consider outcomes this close to a driver's championship challenge.
Yeah, yeah. More comments, guys. I love the fact that you're so engaged. Bharati or Bharti. I will be in Yas Marina circuit. My first live race experience will be cheering for Max to win. Guess who else will be in Yas Marina, my friend, that weekend?
I'm going to be there. Yes, thank you for that. I will be there in Yas Marina. There is actually a lot happening. I'll be there for the rookie test as well, 2 days later. So look out for some of the news when it comes to what's coming out of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Red Bull is going to make a decision mostly on Tuesday or Wednesday, like they always do, and several other decisions coming your way. Soumil and I are smiling because we probably know what's coming. But anyone else coming to Abu Dhabi, let me know. It'll be good to see if we can just say a hi to and meet. But Abhijit is saying somebody needs to pull off a Petro on Norris for Max to become the championship. That has happened before.
Comment of the day, my friend. Elite ball knowledge, and you need to be saluted for that. That, folks, is Abhijit talking about the 2010 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, where Fernando Alonso was nailed on to be world champion. And even Mark Webber was nailed on to be world champion. And both of them were stuck behind one Vitaly Petrov in a Renault. And that's when, folks, we all started to complain about Yas Marina. Now it's become a favorite because 21 was such a great championship finale. But earlier, you remember how much we used to hate that circuit? Yeah, it is.
But the one driver who could keep Lando Norris there, who couldn't keep Lando Norris there, and who people thought just let Lando drive by, Kimi Antonelli. Fianshu's there saying Kimi's debt towards Lando is huge. Miami Sprint, the safety car in Spain, the DNF in Austria, yes, and today Kimi has cost Max his fifth. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
Kimi gave 2 points away to Lando Norris, which will be decisive because it was 10 points till then. It became 12. Nick Warrior has said the same thing. Kimi has a big role to play in deciding the champion. And I know GP Max's engineer said this was, it just seemed like Kimi let Lando drive by on purpose. Suddenly my mind was, wow, Mercedes powered engines trying to win the
Yeah.
drivers' championship is. But then Toto is also trying to chase Max Verstappen, so he wouldn't want to do something that upsets Max. So then lots of replays, of course, said that it was just down to the fact that Kimi made a mistake at that particular corner and Lando went through. So after many races of defending extremely
Mm.
well. Kimi made a rookie's error, if I may call it that, while being not even aggressively chased.
Did he make an error, guys, or what? Because he's made it worse or tougher for his mentor, Max Verstappen. Give me the snake, says Martina. Come on, give me the snake. Yeah. Well, some may think that he has betrayed Max Verstappen.
We could, but
Hmm.
we'll never know. We
Has
just have
he?
to take it as it comes. We just have to take it as it
Is Kimi
comes.
basically saying that since I get a feeling you might be taking my seat sometime in the future,
Then the
yeah.
easiest thing for Kimi is to let Max win, because the minute Max wins, suddenly all the exit clauses get even more complicated, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Nice one. Nice one. More comments coming in. Bharat saying, thanks for picking up the comment. Absolutely love it. Only true is said rigged race. Let's get to that in a second.
In
And
what
by the way,
way? I'm eager to know. Only
yeah,
true. Why don't you tell us? What
yeah.
way?
Feel free to, because that's what's happening today. We're all discussing comments, as we always do, guys, on the Inside Line F1 podcast. Make sure you're always following us on YouTube and Instagram, because lots of short form content will be coming that way. And we are obviously going to do a pre-race show and of course a post-race episode like this for Abu Dhabi 2, along with mid-season content as well. And what do we mean by that? Lots of Formula One drivers, lots of experts in the paddock, lots of people who do decide things in Formula One will be on the show, as they have been for years. Like Helmut Marko has been on the show, David Coulthard has been on the show, Lando Norris has been on the show as well. Who else? A lot of people have, Kunal.
Checo Perez, Nico
Checo Perez,
Hulkenberg.
Nico Hulkenberg,
Wow, so many of them. Esteban
Peter
Ocon, Peter
Esteban
Windsor,
Ocon, yeah,
Steve
Steve
Slater.
Slater. Alex Jakes was on the show last year as well.
Yeah,
Ben
yeah. Ben
Ben
Edwards,
Edwards, yeah,
Bob Varsha,
Bob
Atle
Varsha,
Gulbranson, the most experienced F1 commentator in the world. Him as well.
yes, him as well.
Wow.
And by the way, our Force India stories, which Kunal has narrated along with his boss, are crazy. Like stories of how Subrata Roy and Vijay Mallya actually used to discuss things in the Force India boardroom about the car and the livery and about the technicals. It's crazy. Nick Warrior says, wish we had two more races to go. I agree with you. It's been such a fun season. It's been such a fun season that we don't want it to end, Kunal.
No, no, we don't. But uh, why don't we pick on Nick's comment, right? Uh, who do you think is more deserving? Right, Soumil. We've said Max. Why do you think Max is more deserving? Why don't we expand on that as well?
Because he's quite simply the best. He's undeniable. He's the best across all circumstances, across all conditions, and there is nobody who dares at this moment to go shoulder to shoulder. Maybe George Russell, but that'll take a lot. And I wonder, Kunal, this is a discussion I was actually having with a friend who, again, she is a Max Verstappen fan. And I found someone at Delhi airport wearing a Max Verstappen hoodie. I was like, that's more like it. That's a real fan. And by the way, we are seeing real Formula One fans in public nowadays in India, which is incredible. Show your love, show your support, wear your merch outside. Uh, and we were having this discussion on what it would take to beat Max Verstappen, or what would make Max Verstappen crack. Because evidently, Kunal, from everything we've seen this season, there is no driver or there is no car that's capable of beating Max and Red Bull when they're at their best. Or sometimes when they're not even at their best, like in Qatar today.
Yeah, I think the only way to beat Max is to have such a dominant car that he cannot touch you. If you are within touching distance, you better have the best race execution, because we've said this before. Just having a fast car doesn't mean you dominate in Formula One. Winning is different, domination is different, and McLaren is yet to learn how to win against Max Verstappen, let alone dominate against Max Verstappen. What all has Red Bull been through, Sommel? They've been through Max potentially leaving the team mid-season. They've been through Christian Horner being sacked. They've been through Adrian Newey leaving. They've been through all of that. And here they still are taking that title battle down to the wire. And here's a fun part. And I've always read a lot of books on Formula One drivers. And Mark Webber said this, that when he was in the title battle, as was Sebastian Vettel, okay, Red Bull had printed T-shirts saying Seb Vettel World Champion and Mark Webber World Champion, because come Sunday next week in Abu Dhabi, either one of the McLaren drivers could be world champion, much
Ooh.
as Max Verstappen would be world champion. But the question is, and I would love to ask this to Zach Brown, have you printed, world championship winning t-shirts for both drivers, or is it just one? And I'll tell you what, the drivers who don't win, the two drivers who don't win, I would gladly buy their t-shirts as well, because I would say all three of them are deserving. Just that Max Verstappen deserves it a lot more for what all he has survived in that Red Bull Racing camp.
I agree with you. That, by the way, folks, is a short form video in itself. That this like why Max was that. This is an essay. This is an essay you would go write in school, right? I remember we all used to be in school and they used to ask us like, write an essay on your favorite topic and narrate it to the people. And this is what we all talk about. Kunal and I are such big Formula One nerds, as big as you guys are. So I love the fact that you're here. More comments. Bharat will get to your question in a second. Ganesh says, will Oscar drop his resignation paper at the end of next year? Hmm. Well, he's clearly not enjoying the environment. And I like the fact that Oscar Piastri keeps it zipped up and does the Jose Mourinho thing of, I prefer not to speak because if I speak, I'll be in big trouble. I just wish, Kunal, we'd be able to put a microphone inside Oscar Piastri's brain right now because he is creating lots of filters between his brain and his mouth, which is what a smart person would do. But I wonder what's going on in his head, honestly, right now.
Yes, and while we're talking of Oscar Piastri, there was this interesting moment we were discussing on the official broadcast as well, where was Oscar Piastri and McLaren giving away that the Red Bull are going to pit. Hannah Schmitz was on Viaplay, which is also where you can see me on television, and Hannah Smith actually said we were hearing on that in lap, oh, McLaren are staying out, and everyone in Red Bull was asking, "Are you sure? Are you sure you want to pit?" And she was like, "Yes, I really do." And then she said, no, that's definitely the right thing to do, right? So they were checkmated today. And thank you, McLaren, for making a two-stop race, a mandatory two-stop race, which would have been very clinical 25-25-7, look so interesting. Soumil, don't you think that was the main outcome of McLaren's indecision or decision to not pit?
Yeah. And I saw this meme on Twitter right now, and I love this. In order to keep fairness between our drivers, McLaren is officially supporting Max Verstappen for the Drivers' World Championship with the face of Zach Brown on it. I love that. That is hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious. Nick Warrior says, my first F1 season watching all the races live. Welcome, Nick. Perciv, just imagine Max and Lando fighting neck and neck and crashing and Oscar taking it home. Damn. Yeah, that could happen, my friend. That could really happen. And all of our imaginations can run wild because anything can really happen in Abu Dhabi. So make sure you are watching us on the Fan Code in the F1 broadcast. Anish, Max P1, Lando P4, Abu Dhabi. Who gets the championship?
Has to be Max then, right?
Has to be Max then. Yeah.
Has to be Max. Yeah, it'll be Max then if that's what happens. And actually, Anish is really eager to see because I think he's betting on Max winning and Lando coming P4 because he's repeated the question 2 times. I appreciate that. And RK is saying McLaren's going to bottle it in Abu Dhabi. Please tell me, what do you think their bottle could be in Abu Dhabi? And Abhijit is saying it's good to be a Max Verstappen fan for your mental health because he never lets you down. And I think that is true.
Until the day he's not going to be here. Because I think the only thing that can break Max Verstappen is his motivation.
Yeah.
Like, someday he just won't feel like it.
Here's one more. Bharat is here.
Yeah. If Max, in Abu Dhabi, if Max is running P1, Oscar is running P3, and Lando's P4, let me just bring that comment back up. Yeah. In Abu Dhabi, sorry guys, tech issues happen sometimes. Bharat, in Abu Dhabi, if Max is running P1, Oscar's running P3 and Lando's P4, will McLaren break their papaya rule and ask Oscar to let through Lando? Will Oscar play the team game? We asked the same question before this race on the Qatar GP preview on the Inside Line F1 podcast. And Kunal's answer was a resonant no, that Oscar should be a rebel. I agreed, Oscar should be a rebel too. But we just discussed a few minutes ago that there's not much that Oscar can do contractually, legally. So,
I don't know if it's down to contracts and legal stuff, Soumil. I know. No, what I mean is,
goodwill?
I think it's goodwill. It's about helping the team. It's about being fair and all of that. I don't necessarily believe it's just down to contracts. I think the drivers at McLaren have also bought into the papaya rules. It wouldn't work without drivers being in agreement with that. So let's see what comes of that. But it would be unfair if they did that, because yes, at this moment, and it's a very valid point, in Abu Dhabi, which is the McLaren driver who has a higher chance of winning the drivers' championship, that is Lando Norris, right? If Lando is behind Oscar and Oscar is anyway not going to win, will they ask him to pull over? That is one. And second, will Oscar actually pull over? And like I said in the preview as well, will they sell him that carrot? You need your teammate
Yeah.
in the future. So, give it up now so that you get to, go give it up then. But
I take that carrot and whack the McLaren
yeah.
bosses for saying something like that. Uh, we have a few more comments, guys. By the way, I think we spent a decent time on McLaren, so we should
Yeah.
also pivot to some other stuff. I know we're all in love, and this is the point where we need to tell you more about the other stories and about technically how the race panned out too, so that you know more about the sport and we can give you more insights that will make you fall in love with Formula One a lot more. And that's something that Persiv is feeling right now. He says, by the way, sir, no matter what everyone says, Hindi commentary is just better than English. It's not just fun, it teaches you a lot more about F1. I've learned a lot from you all this season. Thank you. Thank you. That genuinely, genuinely makes my day. I know it makes Kunal's day too. He's also joined in on the fun and made it so much more fun. And he's been an advocate for Hindi commentary as well for the longest time. And he's one of the people who's actually made it happen, along with Chetan Narula and myself and the entire fan code team. So talk about it, guys. Make sure that more people know. Make sure that more people know कि हिंदी में Formula One होता है. Because whoever I meet, be it at an airport, be it at an event, be it at a social function, whatever, they're like, oh, there's Hindi commentary on Formula One. There is. It's India's Formula One commentary. And also in Tamil, by the way, if you guys are interested. So,
And it's such a privilege for you and me, Soumil, to be doing this here in English, to be doing fan code in Hindi as well, and to
yeah.
help grow the sport. And of course, we're not trying to alienate, our Dutch fans and our German listeners and the American listeners. We will continue in what doing what we do on the inside line in English. But we are very proud that everything we've built on the inside line is also now being used to build a local community back in India by the official broadcaster, and that those are things that dreams are made of. I know Soumil's dad, he wrote to me when Soumil was 8 years old, so that's a lot of years ago, saying Soumil wants to be a Formula One commentator. And guess what, we've used our platform, our voices, our community, all the love you guys give us, our perspectives, to actually become Formula One commentators for the official broadcaster. So thank you for all that support. But now let's move. What happened to Ferrari? Asks Ganesh.
What happened to Ferrari? Does Ferrari know what happened to them?
They got John Elkaned. That's what just happened. But clearly, it's just
The
one of those.
prancing horse was not prancing.
Was
It
limping.
was limping. No chane. No chane were fed to the prancing horse. No.
My goodness. Yeah. I mean, clearly,
It's
it's.
it's a desert, no, Kunal. The camels work better than horses in desert. So
This was one of those engineering issues that they face. It's not down to the drivers, Mr. John Elkann. It's not down to anyone else, right? And it was just down to the fact that the car was just not going well. They were just unable to find a setup window that worked. And maybe we saw that, having just one free practice cost Ferrari more than any other race in the season. And I think that whole dream to get P2 is just demolished even more so. The lesser said, the better. Leclerc's spin, high speed spin in qualifying was painful to watch, but that just showed how much is he risking every single lap. And he's human after a point.
yeah. And the Ferrari looked awfully out of place the entire weekend. One comment really comes to mind. It was Fred Vasseur speaking to the media at the start of the weekend and saying that we underestimated the mental toll of stopping aero development on the Ferrari after only 5 races in 2025. We have to ask a question, Kunal. Usually we skip over Ferrari because we just laugh around and say it's a joke. I think on a weekend like this, when at points both Ferraris were running outside the top 10, it is a valid question to ask. Fred Vasseur, has he done Ferrari good, or has he made Ferrari a team that's regressing? Because I saw a perspective somewhere that Ferrari's downfall has properly begun after Mattia Binotto left. And when you zoom out, that kind of makes sense, no? When you zoom out.
You know, I mean, that way, Ferrari's downfall was also after Jean Todt, Ross Brawn, Rory Byrne, and that whole magic gang left, Luca Montezemolo, Michael Schumacher. They've never been as ruthless since then, right? But my feeling is it's not just a Frederick Vasseur decision. He would have taken the board into confidence. They would have run
Hmm.
their numbers and they would have said, even with this package, we would have been P2 or P3 in the championship. And that's what they would have, you don't just say, I'm going to stop developing the car and finish eighth, right? You're going to say, okay, so if you stop developing car, where do you think your numbers say you will finish, and what are the races you will do bad at and good at, and so on. And I think their scenarios were finish second or third, close to second. Maybe that was one of those scenarios, but they never imagined that they would fall down to fourth. A lot of that was down to double disqualifications and so on and so forth that happened. But that's the decision they've taken. Will Ferrari act now? No, but will they act 10 races into 2026? I think so. I definitely think that there is even more pressure for Ferrari onto 2026 than say it's in Abu Dhabi. Yes, we laugh about them in Abu Dhabi, but I wonder who's going to be crying come the first 10 races of 2026, because with the kind of development that they've stopped this year, they better come out with a top two car by a mile. Okay. And I don't mean a top two car where McLaren is up ahead and then you're 1 second slower, but you're still faster than everybody else. That will not be acceptable.
Yeah, big time. And it's all then down to the base platform they come up with. And you may absolutely criticize Ferrari for the way things are going right now, but it's a broader call that they took. And remember, Ferrari has always been in this situation. It only takes, now that only is a tough word to say here, it takes an absolute gem of a Formula One driver in Michael Schumacher to rally the troops, an absolute gem of an engineer, designer, race team manager in Ross Brawn, an absolute gem of a lobbyist, if for the lack of a better word, in John Todt, and Luca de Montezemolo for it to work. Do we have strong personalities like that in Ferrari today? No, we don't. Question has been answered, case has been closed. And again, I want to talk about this comment that Sebastian Vettel made this week. He said, before Lewis went to Ferrari, I told him, you need to learn the language of Ferrari very well. Seb
Hmm.
was not talking about Italian. He was talking about the politics. He was talking about behavior, the way people are, what drives them, what motivates them, how do they make their decisions. And in that regard, I don't think anyone has been able to do it as well as Michael Schumacher. And that's what's not worked for all the other drivers, guys, because they have come to Ferrari with their driving, but they have not been Ferrari. And the only way to drive and motivate the real Italian spirit is to act like a real Italian person, to be one of them, and then they feel it. I don't think they currently feel it for Lewis.
We'll never know. We will never know. But I can still see the comments feed. And I still think that Sadhna is saying Ferrari has never lacked gems of drivers. Yes, I think Ferrari, for all the resources and all the political privileges they have in Formula One, they should be winning everything, not the kind of races we've seen today. I mean, had it not been for Leclerc and his magic in qualifying, Ferrari would have not scored points. They wouldn't have been in the top 10 today, Soumil. That's how terrible they would have been. Sarika is saying, Kunal told me to take my comment back, and I'm still standing on business. I am very eager now to know what this comment was. Did Max reduce the gap to 12 points or increase the pressure by 120%? Says Sarosh. I love that.
Good one. Good one. Good
And
one.
then why is it always Piastri being unlucky one in terms of papaya rules? And let's expand on that. What is Mark Webber's role in this? Should he be banging his fists on the table like Jos Verstappen said a couple of races ago on the downturn of pace for Piastri, on the being ignored in the pits today for Piastri? And I hope so, because I love this. That I said this on the broadcast as well. Every team is scared of Max Verstappen in the track and in the paddock. And I mean this in a positive way. They know that they have to earn his respect. That's the kind of a driver he is. In the same breath, that same team is also afraid of Jos Verstappen. You
Yeah.
need a very strong father, racing business manager, whatever you call it, who will be able to call BS on things. And I think that's what Mark Webber is doing, or hopefully is doing, or should be doing for Oscar Piastri, Sommel. So that's the role I hope that they end up playing out there, because Oscar Piastri needs, and he deserves better than that.
Yeah, and I have all the love and respect for Mark Webber. He is one of my real racing idols and heroes. His journey from where he was in Australia, in spite of all the injuries, in spite of all the rods in his hand, in spite of being the outsider at Red Bull Racing, to achieve what he achieved, has been absolutely phenomenal. And a big part of what he wanted to do with Oscar, in a way, is to make sure that he righted all the wrongs that were happening in his career, basically making sure that what happened to him would never happen to Oscar. But somehow, Kunal, what happened to him is exactly what's happening to Oscar.
Well, not entirely,
Not
right?
exactly, but
Oscar's
the
still getting
outcome, the
the outcome.
outcomes there.
Yes,
Yeah, the
yes,
process has improved. Webber's made sure that they treat both the drivers fairly,
yes.
but the outcome is
He's getting
clearly not fair.
he's getting equal treatment. And now, after we see Qatar, the question is, was it really Oscar who was lacking in those low grip circuits, because Qatar was high speed, high grip circuit? And is that a step Oscar needs to make? Was it?
Yeah,
So yes, you had those bad races where you were lacking, and you're allowed to do that, right? You don't
yeah.
wake up every day winning gold medals every single time you're on the field in any sport, right? But what
Unless you're
about,
Max.
unless you're backs? Yes. But what about the races when you were good and when you were asked to give up points? That's those are specifically the points we're talking of, and at some point
Yeah.
we will do the math. But along with that, we have to celebrate Carlos Sainz's podium. How can you forget that? 41 minutes in, Carlos Sainz, driver 55, Carlos Sainz is podium, his second podium for Williams. And Williams has had a season of two halves. Alex Albon did all the scoring in the first half, and now it's Carlos Sainz. And Williams has actually
Yeah.
sealed P5 in the Constructors' Championship with one race to go, which is great, because I think it was 2010 when Force India was in a battle with Williams for P6, and we lost it to them by 1 point. So I was there in Abu Dhabi when we lost it to them, right? But brilliant race execution, brilliant strategy by Carlos Sainz and Williams to get that podium again on merit, Sommel.
Yeah, and guys, very importantly, Williams used to be scraping the back of the Formula One grid only 5 years ago. They were horrible. They were underfunded. They were underprepared. They were not ready in any way. They were a Formula 1.5 team. They have secured two podiums this year. They are fifth in the Constructors' World Championship. They have scored far more points than any other midfield team. Williams are absolutely on fire. And Carlos Sainz today has done something that Williams has not done for the last 10 years. The first time in 10 years that Williams have scored two podiums in a Formula One season. Let's just take a second to applaud James Vowles, his entire team, everyone working at that company, Alex Albon, Carlos Sainz, everybody. Everybody. Because this may be Carlos Sainz's podium, but it is also Alex Albon's effort to bring the team up to that level. Let's not forget him in that regard. Congratulations to Williams. Wow.
Yes, and I'm waiting to see what happens when both drivers end up scoring, because Albon has got pointless in the last 7 races, which is again
Yeah.
one of those silly streaks. But that's the beauty of the midfield; it is so competitive that goes. And what I love to see is how Carlos Sainz yet again proves to be the most accommodating driver in Formula One. Switch to McLaren, he was quick. Switch to
Yeah.
Ferrari, he was quick. Switch to Williams, and he's quick. If there's anyone who needs to get back into a top team, should Williams not be a top team, it is actually Carlos Sainz. And I would say, if Ferrari has to, like Sarika said, reboot, rewire, recenter, reprogram, or maybe even retire, that was the message, or that was the comment Sarika made, right? I would say James Vowles should be considered as a future Ferrari team principal.
Oh
The
God.
the
Why do
methodical
you
ways.
why do you wish to do that to him, Kunal? Why?
Why not? Okay. Anyway, what
One,
else
one
are we?
second. Because, and this is the last thing we should talk about before we go. It's pretty late in the night, and yeah, Well, no, actually not. Isn't no? We should talk a little bit. We need to talk about Mercedes and their race, and also the DRS train and Fernando Alonso, and let's just go over that for a bit. But i- just to put it that way, there was a comment here that I'm trying to bring out about the problem being a Ferrari-wide issue or a team. That's Saroj's comment. Is it fair to blame Hamilton for Ferrari struggles, or is it a team-wide issue? Let's not forget Saroj. Prost tried and failed. Mansell tried and failed. Alonso tried and failed. Vettel tried and failed. It's a common trend. It's a common trend. Kimi Raikkonen was the only one, apart from Michael, who cracked it because Kimi simply did not care. His emotions just did not fluctuate in any way. He won, he didn't. And that's why it gelled so well with Ferrari. It's not just the Lewis problem, it's broader than that. This is the history and legacy of Ferrari that we've seen for the last 70 years. And I feel as much as we hate it, as much as we get angry about it, let's also celebrate that Ferrari are still as original as they have ever been. It's a character that the sport absolutely needs. Yeah, we love Ferrari.
And it's an emotion that we all feel. I love how there are so many emotional messages that are coming there. We didn't see Alonso spinning. Well, we saw a replay of that, I believe. We saw Antonelli going off. No foul play there. It was just one of those mistakes under pressure, rookie errors, whatever you call it. He was on older tires, keeping him there as well. So, Kimi Antonelli not being able to hold Lando Norris. Yes, Timo Glock ends up being very popular this evening, but it wasn't anything that was done on purpose. Abhij is saying Ferrari's structural issues, that's just because of the kind of teams they have. Yes, we've seen there. If I can take the last comment before we end, Carlos Sainz, let's end on a positive note. My fans can't see me on the podium for some time. He's proved himself wrong. More power to him, and love to see Williams come back to the top. There was a time when Carlos Sainz was at Ferrari and Soumil Arora's podium predictions always included a Carlos Sainz, even if he was getting a 20 place grid penalty.
Always, always. I love him. He is just so adaptable. Always there. He's so expressive. I love. I'm a Carlos Sainz girly now, in a way, just like everyone else. Everyone's a Carlos Sainz girly. Like it's
What does that even mean? But okay.
you don't even know that. Oh my god, it's a subdivision of Formula One fans now. Like the fangirls of Carlos Sainz, and fangirls is of course it may seem like a very gender specific term, but I think it's more gender neutral. Everyone can be a fangirl. It's we're all Carlos Sainz fangirls. We all love Carlos Sainz. It's beautiful.
Okay.
Ah,
Final
yeah.
comment.
Finally, any
Mercedes.
chance of Mercedes faster than McLaren in Abu Dhabi? If Abu Dhabi finds snow, Mercedes may be faster. And then they won't be because somehow they have been quick at the circuits where they weren't quick last year, and they have been slow at the circuits where they have not quite been, where they have been fast. It's been a weird year for Mercedes. But we should go, guys. Before we go, subscribe to the Inside Line F1 podcast on YouTube and Instagram. Subscribe to Kunal A. Shah on X and Instagram. He's constantly putting in updates on whatever's happening in the sport. Subscribe to at I am Soumil Arora on Instagram if you guys want to see everything that I do from Formula One, MotoGP, football, rugby as well sometimes, esports, you name it. I'll be working on that. And there's a lot of really exciting content that we're going to be putting out. Firstly, starting with the Abu Dhabi preview in the middle of the week. Wednesday should be a good day for that. And the race review, but more guests, F1 drivers, commentators, paddock personalities, uh, more. So many people you expect to be in the sport, right in the thick of it, will be on the podcast, as they have been for the last decade. Thank you guys for watching. We will catch you in a little bit. Bye bye.